And now to this, a new development in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He is the man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador last month. Newly obtained court documents reveal that his wife filed for a protective order against him. This was back in May of 2021. And the reason, allegations of domestic violence. At the time, Abrego Garcia was ordered to not contact Jennifer Vasquez, vacate their home, and surrender all firearms. The case was dismissed in June of the same year. And in a statement to CBS News, Vasquez confirmed the order, saying things did not escalate, and she decided not to follow through with the civil court process. She adds this is not justification for ICE's action of abducting and deporting her husband. Much more on this. Let's bring in CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman. Katrina, good to see you today. Can you walk us through the details of this protective order and if this is something the DOJ will bring up in court?
Mugo, so in this protective order, it says that Mr. Abrego Garcia's wife alleged that he had punched and scratched her, that he had ripped off her shirt, and that he had grabbed and bruised her. As you mentioned, the court then ordered him to not contact her, to stay away from their home, to surrender any firearms that he had. And the reality is that a situation like this and an order like this could play a role in having Mr. Abrego Garcia potentially lose his protected status in the United States. But the threshold issue here, Mugo, is that he is currently in that prison in El Salvador. He has not yet had an opportunity for any hearing. If he is brought back to the United States, then potentially we could see this play out. And this is absolutely something that we would see the government bring up in court.
Yeah, and Katrina, we know in the meantime, there's been a number of efforts to bring Abrego Garcia home, including from Democratic Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen. He traveled to El Salvador just yesterday in hopes of actually meeting Kilmar, but he was denied. Let's listen to what he had to say.
So I asked the vice president if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken from the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CCOT? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CCOT. I said I'm not interested at this moment in taking a tour of CCOT. I just want to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he was not able to make that happen.
So, Katrina, we know the Trump administration has said over and over again that it is up to El Salvador, the government there, to decide whether or not to release Abrego Garcia. But we just heard something different from Senator Van Hollen. So what is going to come next from all of this?
So, Mugo, there was a hearing earlier this week, and the judge in that case, Judge Zenas, also thinks otherwise. She says that the way the government is interpreting the Supreme Court's holding in this case, which said that the district court could order them to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia. She says the way the government is interpreting facilitate is, she called it a fallacy. Essentially, the government has said that if he shows up at a port of entry, they will allow him in. She says that that is not the proper way to be defining this word, and she wants action. She told the government's lawyers the other day to cancel any vacation plans that they had. She's having discovery and allowing depositions in this matter. She wants to move this case forward as quickly as possible and make sure that the government is in fact going to take measures to bring Mr. Abrego Garcia home.
And Katrina, I also have to ask you about those flights in the first place, the ones that took people, including Abrego Garcia, to that prison in El Salvador. Judge James Boasberg says he has probable cause to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt. But Katrina, how can this be possible, knowing that the case is no longer in his court?
This is a very interesting part of his ruling. He said that one might ask this question: how can he even make this finding of probable cause and raise the issue of potential contempt proceedings here when this case has been taken out of his court? The Supreme Court decided that it was not the right jurisdiction. But what he writes, Mugo, is that it is a fundamental legal precept that every judicial order must be obeyed, no matter how erroneous it may be, until a court reverses it. So he's saying you have to listen to the courts here. He says the Constitution doesn't tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders, and that no man can be a judge in his own case, no matter how exalted his status or his station or righteous his motives. So he is really laying down the rule of law here, Mugo. He's saying to the government, you have to listen to the court. And if you don't, I will potentially find someone here in contempt. So for now, he has laid out steps in this process. He's giving the government time to remedy this situation. And if they don't, he wants names. He wants to hear who the individuals are that were part of what he calls the violation of his court order. And there is the possibility of contempt proceedings down the line here.
All right, and we shall see what comes next. Katrina Kaufman, thanks for joining us today.